It's 1982 in Pasadena. A woman walks into the back office of a struggling Chinese restaurant, and she's not there to taste the sauce or check the books. She's carrying a technical manual for an IBM computer. Her husband is in the dining room exhausted, and the family's been working 18 hours for 9 years. Paper tickets pile up, inventory disappears. Nobody can tell if the restaurant is making money or just bleeding out. But she doesn't see a restaurant, she sees a broken data system, and she knows exactly how to fix it. Her name is Peggy Chern. She has a PhD in electrical engineering. 6 months ago, she was coding battlefield simulators for the U.S. Air Force. You know, here's what doesn't make a whole lot of sense about Panda Express. In an industry defined by franchising, where chains like McDonald's, Subway, Burger King, well, they grow by selling licenses to independent contractors, but Panda Express, they own almost every single one of its 2,500 locations. They took zero outside investment, no venture capital, no IPO, no franchises. The Chern family still controls 100% of a company that generates over $6 billion a year. How do you scale to thousands of locations while keeping total control? Most business profiles credit the orange chicken, the mall food court strategy, maybe the family's work ethic. I spent some time digging into this, and what I found wasn't a restaurant success story. It was something stranger. The real answer traces back to medical imaging software, NASA's Mars photos, and a dissertation on pattern recognition. So the standard Panda Express origin story goes like this. In 1973, Andrew Chern and his father, Master Chef Ming Tai Chern, well, they opened up a sit-down restaurant called Panda Inn in Pasadena, California. It served high-quality Mandarin and Szechuan cuisine, the food was excellent, word spread, lines formed. A decade later, a real estate developer named Dan Donahue walked into Panda Inn, loved the food, so he proposed something different. A fast casual version for mall food courts. Andrew agreed, and in 1983, the first Panda Express opened at the Glendale Galleria. The line stretched out the door. From there, the narrative becomes a triumphant march. 5 locations by 1985, 100 by the early 90s, 1,000 by the 2010s, and today, Panda Express is the largest Asian restaurant chain in the United States, with average unit sales of $2.4 million, rivaling Chipotle and crushing competitors like P.F. Chang's. Now, most profiles attribute this to the orange chicken invented in 1987 by Chef Andy Cao. It's become the chain's signature dish, moving tens of millions of pounds per year. Now, on the surface, this makes sense. Great product, right time, hard work. But actually, that explanation has a problem. In the 1970s and 1980s, there were thousands of excellent Chinese restaurants in America, and many had better food than the early Panda locations. Some had the same mall opportunities. Most had owners who worked just as hard, but none of them scaled. Not to 100 locations, not to 50. Most just remained single-unit operations, trapped in what industry analysts call the mom-and-pop bottleneck. The reason was structural. Traditional Chinese restaurant operations suffered from fatal inefficiencies that had nothing to do with taste. Recipes lived in the master chef's head. If he got sick, the restaurant closed. Inventory was tracked by visual inspection. Hey, that looks low. Better order more. Which meant waste and theft were invisible. Customer data didn't exist. Nobody knew which dishes actually made money. The Panda Inn in 1981 had all of these problems. Andrew Chern later described those years as desperate and chaotic. On Monday nights during football season, the restaurant sat empty. There was no way to predict demand, no way to see what was working, and no system to repeat what succeeded. This was the reality of independent restaurants in 1982. High quality, zero visibility, impossible to scale. So, what changed? Peggy Chern walked through the door. And Peggy wasn't a restaurant person. Born in Burma, raised in Hong Kong, she earned a bachelor's degree in applied mathematics from Oregon State in 1970, a master's in computer science from the University of Missouri in 1971, and a PhD in electrical engineering from the same institution in 1974. Her doctoral dissertation was titled Computer Analysis of Chest Radiographs Using Size and Shape Descriptors, a pioneering work in algorithmic pattern recognition teaching machines to detect heart defects by identifying anomalies in X-ray images. After graduating, she joined McDonnell Douglas, where she coded battlefield simulators for the United States Navy and Air Force, complex models of dynamic environments with multiple variables, resource constraints, and real-time decision requirements. So from there, she moved to Comtal Corporation, a 3M subsidiary that processed images from NASA's Viking Mars probes and Voyager missions. She rose to manage their entire software department, and she worked on early facial and voice recognition systems. So this is the person who looked at the chaos of Panda Inn in 1982. Many individuals in the restaurant industry lack engineering background, she later told Forbes. I have a distinct advantage. Peggy didn't try to cook better food. She built a digital nervous system. Working from her back office, she designed custom software that tracked inventory down to the ounce, correlating every purchase with every sale. When the restaurant bought 100 pounds of chicken and only 80 pounds showed up in transactions, the system flagged the variance, theft became visible, waste became measurable. But she went even further. The software analyzed sales patterns, which dishes sold on which days, which combination customers ordered together, which items slowed down the kitchen line, and when data showed that Andrew's beloved Mushu pork required extra labor for wrapping and created a bottleneck during rushes, the system didn't care about sentiment. The data won. It was clear to me as an engineer that you need a system, she told Fortune. We were one of the first companies to use a computer in the 1980s. This is the mechanism that made scaling possible. The recipes got codified, the inventory got tracked, the decisions got data. When Panda Express expanded to a second location, they didn't need to clone the chef, they just installed the software. By 1997, Panda Restaurant Group hit $178 million in revenue across 254 stores. And by 2010, they crossed $1 billion. By 2023, they were generating $5.3 billion from over 2,500 locations, still 100% family-owned. Now, most restaurant chains franchise because they need that outside capital in order to grow, but Panda's technology advantage generated margins that were efficient enough to fund expansion internally. The code created the cash that kept the company private. You know, there's a version of this story that erases Andrew and credits everything to Peggy's engineering. But honestly, that would be wrong. Andrew was the one who opened Panda Inn. At 25 years old, he was the one who said yes to the Glendale Galleria deal when it would have been easier just to stay small. He's described by colleagues as someone who doesn't see anything that's not possible. The dynamic was complementary. Andrew built momentum, Peggy built structure. He found the opportunities, she created the systems that made them repeatable. I'm the one who dealt with getting the stores open and functioning, Andrew told Fortune. After that, Peggy took care of the rest. That quote is more honest than most founders ever get, and it's an acknowledgement that vision without systems is just exhaustion. That growth without visibility, that's gambling. And that the rest of it part, the part that actually determines whether a company survives or scales, required an entirely different kind of mind. Now, Peggy, for her part, has never claimed to be a cook. I happen to be good at math, good in engineering, but I don't know how to cook, she said in a 2012 interview. That's exactly the point. She didn't need to know how to cook. She needed to know how to measure, predict, and optimize. The kitchen was never her domain. The data was. Today, if you walk into certain Panda Express kitchens, you will see a robotic arm tossing ingredients in a wok, and that is called the Panda Auto Wok. And that was developed internally over 7 years, not licensed from outside vendors. The robot doesn't get tired. It doesn't forget the sauce. It follows the code perfectly every single time. So this is the logical endpoint of what Peggy started in 1982. First, digitize the data, then standardize the process, and then automate the execution. The Churns are now worth over $3 billion, and they've given more than $100 million to City of Hope Cancer Research and endowed an entire department at Caltech. But here's what I keep thinking about. In 1974, Peggy Churn wrote algorithms to detect heart disease from X-ray patients. 8 years later, she applied that same logic to detect operational disease in a restaurant. It's just the patient changed. The diagnosis method didn't. So Panda Express, well, it's not a restaurant that uses technology. It's a technology company that happens to sell orange chicken.